Hey, good morning, y'all. It's Jay. I'm just shooting a real quick video. I'm up and I'm gonna make a couple t-shirts. I'm just doing some testing shirts, and then I've got Dez's order to render, which I need to use the computer program to render the shirts he wants. And then I'll print his shirts. I'll print the images for his shirts tonight, and then I'll press his shirts tomorrow so that they're ready to be shipped off on Tuesday. Um, and then I'll kind of do the same thing with the shirts that I have for the last round of Otis's pre-order. It's probably about 20. I don't even know. It's a lot of shirts. They're all behind my monitor right here. But I'll print his images out on maybe tonight too, or maybe Monday night. I'll print his images out while I'm pressing um, Dez's shirts, and then I'll press them Tuesday morning so they can be shipped out Tuesday after I get off work. So yeah, just trying to plan my work and work my plan. But after I do these couple of test runs that I'm doing, I'm gonna work on the books for this buyer from Japan. Really cool. But I'm going to talk a little bit about something. I'm trying to keep it short this morning. This is my second time shooting the video. It was 30 minutes when I shot it before, and I was like, let's get it down to 5 to see if somebody actually wants to watch it, whatever. So, uh, what happened with this buyer, I put up a post yesterday, and I said, hey, this buyer wants this. It's kind of weird. Really what I was looking for, because it was so odd to me, I was looking for somebody like Nicholas the Fault, or somebody on my page who might know what is going on. And Nicholas actually commented on it. So what I was looking for, I got, but I thought I was going to get something else. I thought I was going to get Nicholas because he has a great eye with comics. Like I use that brother to say, hey Nick, can you I want to sell this Cap 117. I think it's a I think it's only a good quality book. Here, I'm gonna what it's gonna cost me to send you the pictures of this and look and be a second eye, because his eye is phenomenal. He's looked at books for me, and they always come back within a half a point with what he says. And he saved me money by me not buying books, by saying, hey Jay, did you look, you didn't really look at this. And he does it in a way that teaches you, not in a way that kind of makes you feel like, oh, I'm a dummy, I thought this was a 9.0 and it was a 7.5. But he teaches you while he's doing it. So I've learned a lot from him. But really, I was looking for him to be like, hey Jay, uh, this is a scam. Like, I know this because I've been in the comic game so long, and the guy's not really buying the books. You're sending them to the binders, who's really this is part of the Mexican cartel. Oh God, that's racist. But it's part of some kind of scam. Blah 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 blah. Your Jehovah's Witnesses are going to get your books and turn them into watchtowers. I don't know. I don't know. But I thought that he was going to say something like that, but he wasn't. He was asking about the binding and is it going to be bound into 6 copies, whatever. But that made me start thinking, because at that point I had assumed that my buyer was buying these books and that the money was going to be burnt up, because that's what I know. So I know that when I have a nice book like the 7.5 Luke Cage #1, that you send it off to CGC, they hermetically seal it. It's not UV sealed, so keep this sucker out of the sun. But um, you put it in this to preserve it, and then when you die, your kids will take this book, and it'll be worth 10 times what you paid for it, and they'll sell it and buy something foolish with it. That's what you do with these books. If you have books that you necessarily don't want to get CGC, this is First Black Mariah, this is Luke Cage #5. You take those books and you put them in bags and boards. Sometimes you put them in a heavier bag on top of the bag. Sometimes you put them in a top loader. You preserve those books, you protect them. What you don't do is take this $645 book, last sale on eBay. You don't take this book and take it out of the case and have somebody cut the cover off to put on a binded book and do an art project out of it, because it would kill the value of the book. But those are assumptions I made based on what I know. And I don't know anything. Oh, I didn't know anything about binded books, which puts me at a disadvantage when dealing with a buyer who wants to bind these books. I did my research yesterday about binded books. I did the research myself, then I spoke with the buyer, and I learned some things. I learned that there is value in binded books. There's a secondary market for it. The value's not burnt up. And that, by doing that and then having the discussion with him, it made me better able to do what he's paying me to do, which is source these books for him out of my own, and even some that I just, my books were very fine that he wanted, but I'm replacing the Black Mariahs, the number 5s, because it's a very fine book all day, both of mine. This one I think this one might be near minus, or near mint minus. But the thing is, learning from him about binded books is this whole, your side's gonna get clipped here. This part's gonna be binded, so you don't specifically need to worry about any ticks, which gives you a little bit of leeway on your books. But what I think after that is, okay, if I'm buying a very fine book, and we're not looking at this is going to get clipped, and we're going to bind here, so your spine, if there's spine ticks, they don't count against that. So if you're getting leeway there in a book, but you're paying the same amount for it, as a seller, I want you to get what you're paying for. So I want to be harder on the tops and the bottoms of the book and the covers. So even though this might be a near mint minus all day, very fine all day, very fine plus, I want to find a better copy for him for what he's trying to do, because the value in it is different than if it's a whole book. But I can't know those things unless I ask them, and I don't assume. And I made some really big assumptions yesterday, and it put me at a disadvantage, and it put my buyer at a disadvantage. And I didn't pull the post down. I just made it only me, and it wasn't because I didn't want the buyer to see it. He added me on Facebook. He'll probably see the video, or I'll send it to him too. But it put me at a disadvantage of serving him, because how can I serve him if I don't understand what he's doing? Almost sounded like I was going to get biblical there and be like, how can you serve God if you don't understand what he's doing? But that's not where I was going with it. Where I was going was, by making these assumptions about people and about things, we do them a disservice and we do ourselves a disservice. And just real quick, I've got on my Blurred shirt. We're gonna be selling these. I haven't done any marketing on them. I sold a few, but haven't done any marketing on them yet. But for all, I am a black nerd. I like nerdy stuff, like black nerd stuff. I like overall nerd culture stuff. I don't like anime too much. There's some animes I like and mangas, but I don't. That's not my thing. But I like comic books. I like sci-fi. I like Dungeons and Dragons. I play every Thursday night for 4 hours, and I love it. I like nerdy stuff. But when you look at Blurred, there's also the black in there, not just nerd. And me being a black nerd is different than someone who's not a black nerd, who might just be a nerd, not a blurred. There's no word, but there's a difference there, because things that you might ignore when you walk into a comic book shop that you don't know, or that you might not notice, because of privilege, I don't have that. So I've had plenty of heated discussions in comic book shops. I just think about one in in Long Island. I was out for work and ended up going and buying some books, and uh, there's a conversation about racism and about you know, it was crazy, not crazy, it was wild. Um, but the guy was trying to explain to me how Michelle Obama was racist because she said she wasn't comfortable living in the White House because slaves had built it. And somehow she was racist because of that. When I asked him to pull out his phone and, to get a definition for racism, he did. And then he looked, this is the owner of the shop. He looked stupid because he was like, okay, well, it's not racism, but I don't like it. Okay, you don't have to like it. But what you're not going to do is sit in my presence and call Michelle Obama racist because she doesn't like living in the White House because slaves built it. Like, that is the antithesis of racism. Like, you don't have to like it, and you can say, "Hey, I don't want to talk about racism, and I don't think people should, and this and that." Like, I don't care. Like, do that. I'll tell you, you're wrong, but you're not going to put that label on Michelle Obama because So, anyways, but I deal with different things not only as a black nerd, but I deal with different things as a black man. And if you are somebody in my circle or my friend or just somebody who finds interest in this weird stuff I do, um, it's important for you to know that uh, my experiences are different. And if we ever happen to be together in the same place, and you know, we're at a con, just for instance, we're at a con, and you and I meet, and oh man, this is so cool. The world opened back up, and we're out at this con, and oh man, let's go to lunch. It's important that you know that you're going to lunch with a black man, because if we go sit down at lunch and um, we get up and the police stop me and ask me for my ID or do whatever, you know, there's ways to be an ally, you know, and there's ways not to. Like that, you could possibly endanger me by talking to the police wrong. Um, I told a story on my last little video about the woman that stepped in, from the young white woman that stepped in when we were at the restaurant. But you got to be smart enough to be an ally to know when you can do that and when you're being a danger. You know, if you're going to make me get arrested by doing what you're doing, like, that's a danger. Like, you know, it's different, and you try to explain to people, and the automatic, not the automatic. Some people get it inherently because they have the empathy required to understand what the world is and what it is for me and what it is for other people. Um, but that empathy that's required uh, makes it so that I don't have to tell you a story or get into these long soliloquies for you to understand that things are different for me. Like, let's get into, okay, Transformers. Um, give a really good example. Transformers. Andrew is sending me all of these. Andrew Fry, he's my dungeon master, my Transformer benefactor for Zuri. Like, great dude. I write about him a lot on Facebook because he's a good dude. Never met him in person. Like, that's wild. I've never met Andrew in person. Good dude though. Spend every Thursday with him for the last 2 years. Playing Dungeons and Dragons and talking about life and our families, and good dude. So, anyways, Andrew's sending a second round of Transformers to Zuri, and he's sending Megatron. For those of you who know Megatron, Silver Transformer, he turns into a gun. Starscream usually holds him, sometimes Soundwave. And he turns into a gun, turns back to a robot, to a gun, to a robot. So the gun, when he turns from a robot in the toy to a gun, the gun is a big size. It's the size of a regular gun. So My parents bought me Megatron on my seventh birthday. I believe. I think it was my seventh birthday, and opened it during the summer, and I was so excited. I got Megatron. I'd already had Optimus Prime. I had Sideswipe, but they bought me Megatron. Now I got the best bad guy. But they would not let me take that Transformer outside. I could take all of my other Transformers outside. I could take out Optimus Prime and Sideswipe and, Bumblebee. I could take all of those Transformers outside and play with. But Megatron was an in the house Transformer. And at 7, I knew why. It wasn't a scare tactic. It wasn't my parents being hysterical. My dad was a detective at the time. He might have been I'm 7. He might have been a sergeant at the time because he went up from detective to sergeant, back down to detective, and then up to lieutenant from detective. The only police officer to ever do that. He was first black police officer in Madison, Wisconsin, 1970. By the way, I probably told everybody that 50 times, but I'm proud of it. But he wasn't being hysterical. He knew that he had to protect me, and as a young black boy, the propensity for me to be shot by a police officer who probably directly reported to my father at the time was extremely high, just for having that Megatron toy, having it outside. And a lot of my friends didn't have to deal with that. Their parents didn't know the reality that I lived with as a 7-year-old. But they had the privilege of not knowing that. It doesn't mean that, my parents did well. Like I didn't grow up, I I grew, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, but my parents did pretty well. And we had a big house by the lake, and people come in and go fishing and swimming and do all that stuff. And not until I got to to like Van Hise and West for middle school and high school did I realize, like, okay, you this is nice. You live by the lake, whatever. But then I started having girlfriends that had hot tubs in their backyards, and who had friends with hot tubs in their basement, like, and it's like, okay, that little lake is cool, but we're over here in Shorewood, and we live on the lake, and we got this and that, and blah 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 blah, and this house is, you know, your dad didn't try to electrically wire this house so the lights only work, from 5 to 9 in this room or whatever. It was different. Um, but even though I may have had a different privilege than some of my friends financially, I didn't have the privilege to be able to ignore what could happen to a black man, a black boy, and that black boys are seen as black men. And we know that from the killing of Tamir Rice, um, and the way that Michael Brown was killed. Like, we know these things. And my dad had to protect me at 7. Like, you have to sit and look. Did your dad or your mom or whoever were your guardians, as a white person, did they have to protect you in that way? And once you get over that hump of did they have to do that, and you can look and honestly say no, they didn't, and be honest about it, because you can be like, well, I had to do that too. Be honest. Like, be honest with yourself, and we know that that's not true. And then after you're honest with yourself, as a ally and as somebody who is a good person and trying to make the world better for everybody, you can't say, well, what can I do? Or, it doesn't affect me. Like, that's not how empathy works. The way that empathy works is that, man, not only do I look at your situation and I feel like, damn, that's messed up, but I also can put myself in your shoes and say, you know what? This isn't right, and I feel it. And then I take it a step further and I say, not only do I feel it, but how do I make this better for you? With the privilege that I have, how do I translate that into making it better for you and better, because we're all in this together, and I have a male privilege that that people don't have and that women don't have, and you might not, it might not be men, women, because that's gender specific, and um, but I have a male privilege that folks who are trans don't have, folks who women don't have. Like I have this privilege, but I've got to make sure that I use it in a way that doesn't, one that doesn't harm, doesn't do harm. It sounds like Star Trek. That doesn't do harm, and that helps folks who don't have the same privilege and helps even out the world. And that's what I ask from people. Like, if you're going to be in my circle and you're going to look at this weird shit I do and hang out and whatever, like, I expect that of you. Like, because I would expect it of me. And I expect it whatever. And if you're at a point and you're just like, that's not, I'm not into that. Like, just unfriend me, unsubscribe, go about your life. Like, to be real. Like, and I tell people that all the time. Like, I don't deal with the transphobic, the homophobic, the any of that. I don't deal with it because it's nonsense. It's foolish. And if you're willing to be transphobic and homophobic in front of me, what are you saying not in front of me? You know and that's the thing. Like, you don't have to agree with what I agree with, but just do it over there. And if you're doing it over there, like, just be real with yourself and say, you know what, I don't need to be cool with this dude because he's not, no hard feelings, no love lost. You actually make my life simpler and make your life simpler. You don't have to hear these long soliloquies about being fair and whatever. You just go over there, you know be gone. But let's get into the negative, whatever. But I just want to say that those assumptions that we make about other people and what other people do, um, they can they can they can work to our disadvantage. And when you take the time to understand why someone's doing something and how they're doing it, it, you take the time to understand what someone's going through and why they're going through it, it puts you at an advantage to help them, and it also puts you at an advantage to help yourself, for them to help you. I said the other day that the universe provides, um, but that's one of those things. Like, we say these things, and it sounds like we're getting all you know Badooey and all that, but all these things you say, the universe provides, and but that's the same thing as saying, God only helps those who help themselves. That's, the universe will provide for you, but you have to put yourself in position for that. You can't just say everything's going to be okay. Like, no, you got to put yourself in position to be able to receive those blessings. The blessings will come, but if you're not ready for them, how can you use them? And that's the same with people. Like, it's all of this stuff. As I get older, I start to see that all of this stuff makes sense. Like, all this stuff makes sense. Like you help people because it's the right thing to do. They help you because it's the right thing to do. It's collective. It's cooperative. It makes sense. Like, it makes sense. I hate to get metaphysical, but it you know, but you don't do it for there's um you don't do it for the get back. You do it because it feels good and it is good. You know, what you get back is, the Bible says it'll come back tenfold. When it comes back, that's great, but that's not why you did it. And that's not why you um should empathize or be an ally, because it feels good and it looks good. You don't do it because of that. You do it because it is good and it's right and it's righteous. And one of the 2 summers ago, this is the last thing I'll say is, God, this video is 25 minutes long again. I'm sorry. last thing I'll say, 2 summers ago, was having an issue with the kids across from my cul-de-sac parking in front of the fire hydrant. And for those of you who know, Nash had a stroke that summer while they were in visiting me. Nash had for the summer had a stroke and was in the hospital at UW Hospital for 2 weeks, and then went back to Philadelphia, and it was it's touch and go. It was scary, scary, scary. But the kids across the way who live in this condo across the street were parking in front of my fire hydrant, and this is after Nash had went to the ER and was up at UW Hospital. I was just like, it was irritating me, and I'm like, yo, stop parking in front of my fire hydrant, because when Nash comes back, if something happens and the fire department needs to come, or ambulance or whatever, if there's a fire or whatever, you guys are in front of this fire hydrant. So I'm on these kids about it. I'm on them. But what ends up happening is, I talked to my dad about it. And I'm like, Dad, I don't want to call the police on these kids, because if the police come and they, I'm like, I'm trying to handle it myself. I'm like, because if the police come and one of these kids gets accidentally shot for something else, or whatever, that's going to be on my heart. So, I don't want that. So I'm trying to talk to these kids, but I'm trying to talk to them in a way that they can digest what I'm saying. And my dad in that conversation called me a righteous man. And it's one of it's I've never had I've never felt that way before. Aries made me cry the other day, Neon Pen, about this book. I mean, about this shirt. He was like, "How does it make you feel?" And I was like, "Man, I'm a Cancer. I'm emotional as hell." So, uh, but when my dad called me a righteous man, I had never felt that before. Um, because my dad's not perfect. I told my mom that yesterday when we were talking. I said, my dad's not perfect. He does what he does. I love him, but I think that he's always been a moral compass for me, and he was my first superhero. And it felt like Superman or Luke Cage or Black Panther saying, "Man, you're a good dude." Like, I'm blessed to have the people in my life who I do, and to have the parents I have, and to have my dad. I'm really, really blessed. And oh god, I'm gonna end the video. I appreciate y'all if y'all made it through to see me get weepy early in the morning or whatever. I hope my wife is still asleep and not hear me out here bawling. Because I was talking to Otis yesterday, and he said his wife called him soft as baby thighs, and I don't want to be called soft as baby thighs this morning. So y'all be easy, and I love y'all. And if you made it through, cool. If you dropped out at minute 7, you missed seeing me get weepy. All right, y'all.